She was employed as a cleaner within a large, bustling restaurant, a quiet figure navigating the opulent space. Each evening, as the last patron departed and the clatter of plates subsided, she would approach the kitchen staff with a soft-spoken request for any available leftover food. Her movements were discreet, her presence unassuming. Nobody amongst the restaurant's busy team or its affluent clientele seemed to take much notice of her beyond her function, nor did they inquire where she vanished to once her demanding shift concluded. Her world after work hours remained a mystery, a hidden existence tucked away from the glittering facade of the Sapphire Haven. However, the unseen realities of her life were about to be unveiled. One particular evening, her immensely wealthy employer, a man known for his keen but silent observation, decided, almost on impulse, to discreetly follow her. What he witnessed that night was a scene of such raw and profound human struggle and unwavering maternal love that it pierced his heart and brought him to tears. The woman he knew simply as a cleaner, seemingly impoverished and perpetually tired, held within her a narrative far deeper and more moving than anyone at the restaurant could have imagined. Who was this quiet woman, truly? What was the underlying story, the untold suffering that lay beneath her composed surface? Settle in and allow yourself to be drawn into this deeply poignant account as we delve into the truth of Aisha's life. In the vibrant, pulsating heart of Lagos, amidst the city's ceaseless energy and dazzling lights, stood a grand and undeniably impressive dining establishment known as the Sapphire Haven. Its architecture was striking, and its facade gleamed like highly polished glass, reflecting the urban glow. Day after day, a procession of elegant automobiles, sleek sedans, powerful SUVs, would arrive and park with quiet efficiency before its entrance, their occupants symbols of the city's prosperity. Inside the restaurant, a different world unfolded. Prosperous individuals, dressed in fine attire, reclined in plush, comfortable seating, immersed in conversation and the enjoyment of exquisite, carefully prepared cuisine served on gleaming china. The proprietor of this esteemed establishment was a man of significant standing, Mr. Adebayo, a figure so prominent and successful that he was often respectfully referred to by the honorific Chief Adebayo. His wealth was not just apparent, it was vast and influential, a testament to his sharp business acumen and hard work. Chief Adebayo was, without question, exceedingly affluent. His appearance consistently reflected his status. He invariably wore crisp, perfectly tailored suits, impeccably white shirts, and shoes polished to such a mirror-like shine that you could almost see a reflection in them. His demeanor was one of quiet authority and unwavering presence. As he entered the restaurant each morning, a palpable shift occurred in the atmosphere. The entire staff, from the most junior cleaner to the most senior manager, would pause their tasks and rise in unison to greet him. "Good morning, Chief," they would chorus, their voices a respectful blend of deference and acknowledgement. He would receive their greeting with a slight, acknowledging smile and a brief nod of his head, his response typically concise, instructing them simply to continue. He was a man of few unnecessary words, preferring to observe everything happening within his domain silently, taking in details others might miss. His eyes, though often scanning, possessed a depth that suggested a mind constantly evaluating and understanding. Chief Adebayo's mode of transport befitted his status. He drove a sleek, dark sedan, a vehicle that always appeared brand new, reflecting his commitment to excellence and luxury. His business was large and complex, requiring a substantial and well-managed workforce, exceeding 50 dedicated employees. Each individual had a specific role contributing to the smooth operation of the Sapphire Haven. Some were assigned to the bustling, high-pressure environment of the kitchen, where culinary magic was created. Others expertly managed the front-of-house service, ensuring patrons received impeccable attention. And a crucial team was responsible for maintaining the pristine cleanliness of the extensive premises, ensuring that the luxurious environment always looked its best. Yet, despite the outward appearance of seamless luxury and efficient operation, beneath this polished veneer, an unexpected and deeply human event was about to unfold, one that would challenge perceptions and reveal hidden truths. It was a serene evening in Lagos, the kind of night when the city's usual clamor seemed to soften. The illumination within the Sapphire Haven restaurant had been thoughtfully subdued, creating a warm, inviting glow that now served as a gentle farewell. All the day's patrons had departed, their satisfied conversations replaced by a settling quiet. Most of the restaurant's large workforce had already completed their shifts and headed home, leaving only a skeleton crew responsible for closing procedures and final cleaning. Chief Adebayo emerged from the quiet sanctuary of his private office, a space of polished wood and hushed tones. He appeared visibly fatigued, the long hours of overseeing his empire weighing on him. He reached up and loosened his necktie, a small gesture of weariness, and exhaled slowly as he began to descend the grand staircase towards the ground floor and the exit. It had indeed been an arduous day, filled with decisions and oversight. As he reached the entrance, he activated his car key fob, and the sleek, dark sedan parked outside emitted a soft, confirming sound, ready for his departure. But then, his observant eyes caught sight of something unusual, something that didn't quite fit the usual pattern of closing time. A woman was positioned near his vehicle, not directly beside it, but within noticeable proximity, her posture one of stillness and quiet apprehension. She was clearly an employee, identifiable by her attire. The restaurant's standard brown and gold uniform, now looking slightly worn at the end of a long day. Her hands were clasped tightly together in front of her, a gesture that suggested nervousness or humility, and her gaze was directed downwards, avoiding eye contact. Chief Adebayo paused his movement towards his car, his posture shifting from weariness to alert inquiry. He narrowed his eyes slightly. "Who is that?" he inquired aloud, glancing around the nearly empty parking area. Only a few cleaning personnel remained, finishing their tasks near the building's entrance. The woman remained still, almost frozen in place, as if bracing herself or anticipating something significant. Chief Adebayo took a few measured steps forward, his curiosity piqued. The atmosphere around her felt unusually heavy, charged with an unspoken energy. Something about the scene didn't feel ordinary. There was a sense of quiet desperation that drew his attention. He approached her slowly, his footsteps soft on the paved surface. As he drew near, she briefly lifted her eyes, meeting his gaze for just a fleeting second before quickly averting them again, her shyness or fear evident. "You are part of the cleaning staff, correct?" he asked, his voice calm but direct. "Yes, sir," she responded softly, her voice barely above a whisper, yet clear enough in the quiet evening air. "My name is Aisha." She did not raise her head, keeping her hands clasped, her entire posture radiating an air of apprehension, like someone preparing for a difficult request or a potential refusal. Chief Adebayo seemed momentarily puzzled by her presence there and her demeanor. "So, why are you standing near my car at this hour?" he questioned, his tone still even, but with a hint of expectation. Aisha bit her lip, a small sign of internal struggle. Then, with a visible effort, she drew a small, shaky breath. "Please, sir," she began, her voice still soft but gaining a fraction of strength. "I wish to request a favor from you." Chief Adebayo waited, his mind cycling through possibilities. He assumed she might solicit funds, perhaps a loan or an advance on her salary, or perhaps she might voice a grievance about working conditions or pay. Aisha glanced up again momentarily, her eyes holding a fleeting expression of hope mixed with fear, before lowering her gaze swiftly once more. "Could I possibly take some leftover food home with me?" she asked, the question hanging in the air between them. Chief Adebayo blinked, genuinely taken aback by the simplicity and nature of her request. He remained silent for a moment, processing her words. "Just leftover food?" he repeated, his voice tinged with surprise. He looked intently at her, trying to read her expression, which was mostly hidden by her lowered head. "Is that truly all you desire? Nothing else? No money, no other help?" Aisha nodded, a simple, earnest movement. "Yes, sir. Just the leftover food. If any is available." "Whatever is left, sir." A silence fell between them then, the kind that feels heavy and constricting, filling the space with unspoken thoughts and observations. Chief Adebayo looked at her once more, taking in her appearance properly. She seemed weary, not just physically but perhaps emotionally as well. Her uniform, though clean, showed signs of wear, and her shoes looked significantly worn, suggesting long hours on her feet and perhaps a difficult journey to and from work. Her voice had been faint, tinged with fatigue and maybe a touch of desperation. He gave a slight, almost imperceptible nod, a decision forming in his mind. "All right," he agreed, his voice softer now. "You may take whatever leftovers are available." "Thank you, sir," Aisha whispered, her relief palpable in the quiet tone. Without further hesitation, she turned swiftly and retreated back towards the kitchen area, disappearing through the employee entrance. Chief Adebayo remained standing by his car, not immediately getting in. He simply remained still, his gaze fixed on the kitchen entrance where she had vanished. Something within his heart had begun to stir, a feeling he couldn't immediately identify or understand why it had been prompted by such a simple request. He eventually opened his car door and entered the vehicle, but he did not start the engine right away. He had watched her re-entering the kitchen, a figure moving with purpose despite her apparent weariness. The car engine was still off, the parking area quiet and empty around him. He leaned back in his seat, closing his eyes briefly, attempting to rest, but his thoughts were restless and persistent. That single question persistently returned to his mind, echoing in the quiet space. Why would an employee, working in such a place of abundance, merely request leftover food? Not money, which was so readily available to him. Not assistance with a pressing problem. Not even a request for a salary increase, which many employees might consider. Just food. Scraps. Leftovers. He opened his eyes again and stared intently at the restaurant door, his gaze fixed on the point where she had disappeared. Something felt undeniably amiss about the situation. He reflected on Aisha's voice. It was gentle, yes, but clearly tired, lacking the usual energy of someone finishing their shift. And when she had briefly looked at him, there was an expression in her eyes, a fleeting vulnerability, like someone struggling deeply, concealing a significant pain or burden that she carried alone. Chief Adebayo checked his watch, the luminous dial, showing it was nearing 10 p.m. Still, despite the late hour and his fatigue, he did not depart. A new resolve had settled over him. He was determined now. He wanted, perhaps even needed, to see where she went with those leftovers. He felt a compelling urge to understand the circumstances that led a seemingly hardworking woman to ask for scraps as if they were a precious, life-sustaining gift. His heart began to beat a little faster, a sense of anticipation mixed with a growing concern. "I will wait," he told himself softly, his decision firm. Approximately 10 minutes elapsed, the silence punctuated only by the distant sounds of the city. Then the restaurant door opened again, and it was Aisha. She emerged slowly, carefully, carrying 2 small polythene bags clutched in her hands. They did not appear heavy, suggesting the volume of leftovers wasn't substantial. She held them close to her body, almost protectively, and without looking back, she began walking away from the restaurant, heading towards the main road. Chief Adebayo reclined further in his seat, making himself less visible, and waited patiently until she had gained some distance, a minute or 2 passing. Then, carefully, deliberately, he turned the key in the ignition. The engine started with a quiet hum, but he delayed turning on his powerful headlights for a few seconds, allowing her to get further ahead before his presence might alert her. He drove slowly, maintaining a safe distance, far enough away that the sound of his vehicle wouldn't be heard over the city's ambient noise, but close enough to keep her distinct figure in sight. Aisha continued walking, her pace surprisingly quick and determined, as if she had a clear destination and was eager to reach it. After several minutes of walking alongside the road, Aisha reached a bus stop and turned, joining a small line of people. She boarded a small community bus, one of the ubiquitous minibuses that served the local routes. Chief Adebayo's gaze followed the bus as it pulled away from the stop and merged into the evening traffic. Without a second's hesitation, he pulled his sleek car onto the road and began to pursue it, keeping the bus in view. The bus was crowded with passengers, a stark contrast to the empty luxury of his own vehicle, and the roads in that part of the city were uneven, marked with potholes and bumps, making the drive challenging. Yet, he remained close behind, a silent observer following the small, worn bus through the darkening streets. The sky had darkened considerably now, having transitioned from twilight to a deep, starless black. Street lighting became sparse as the bus moved deeper into the district, with some lamps flickering intermittently or not functioning at all, plunging sections of the road into shadow. Still, he followed, his determination unwavering. Nearly 30 minutes later, the bus finally halted with a jolt, reaching the end of its route or a major stop. Aisha disembarked slowly, carefully navigating her way off the crowded bus, still clutching her two small polythene bags. She did not look around, her focus seemingly singular. She simply turned and walked away from the bus stop, onto a small, unpaved path that led away from the main road and into the dimness. Chief Adebayo stopped his car a significant distance behind, finding a discreet spot to park, and turned off the engine, plunging his immediate surroundings into silence. He stepped out quietly, his eyes scanning the area ahead of him. There was nothing aesthetically pleasing or indicative of prosperity here. No brightly lit shops, no elegant residences with manicured gardens, no parked vehicles suggesting wealth. The area was silent, save for the sounds of nature, and overwhelmingly dim, illuminated only by the faint light filtering from distant sources or the occasional moonbeam. He cautiously moved a little closer on foot, his expensive shoes now treading on rough, uneven ground. Aisha approached an old, dilapidated structure, a building that looked neglected and long past its prime. The walls were cracked and stained, showing signs of severe disrepair. The roof appeared ancient, sagging in places, and many of the window panes were broken or boarded up, giving the building a derelict appearance. Chief Adebayo stood motionless, his gaze fixed on the building, looking at it again and again as if trying to comprehend what he was seeing. "This is her dwelling," he murmured to himself, the words barely audible, a statement of disbelief. It was difficult for him to accept that this could be someone's home. This did not resemble a place where people lived. It looked like a place people would flee from, a structure on the verge of collapse. He took a deep, shaky breath and stepped back slightly, concealing himself further in the shadows, his heart suddenly heavy with a weight he couldn't fully comprehend. Chief Adebayo remained concealed in the deep shadows near the path, his eyes fixed on the old, decaying building. He was still observing the structure, the silence of the night pressing in, when something occurred that broke the stillness and profoundly impacted him. The ancient door of the dilapidated house creaked loudly as it was slowly pushed open from the inside. Then, two small girls, barefoot and dressed in simple, perhaps patched, clothing, burst out of the doorway, their faces alight with excitement, laughing as they leaped into Aisha's waiting embrace. "Mommy," the first one exclaimed, her voice ringing with pure joy and relief. "Mommy, you returned," the second cried out, her voice equally full of happiness. Aisha released the polythene bags she had been holding so carefully, allowing them to fall to the ground for a moment, and hugged both children tightly, pulling them close to her body as if she would never let them go. Her smile was broad, a radiant expression of love for her daughters, but even in the dim light, Chief Adebayo could see that her eyes still held a lingering look of weariness beneath the joy. She knelt down on the rough ground and kissed each of their foreheads tenderly, her affection evident in the simple gesture. "I'm here, my darlings," she said gently, her voice filled with a warmth that contrasted with the harshness of her surroundings. "I brought something for you." From his hidden position in the shadows, Chief Adebayo could see everything clearly, the scene unfolding like a private, moving drama. His heart pounded rapidly in his chest, a physical reaction to the emotional intensity of the moment. "She has children," he thought, touching his chest lightly, the revelation adding another layer to her story. Aisha tenderly took the girls by their small hands and led them back inside the broken house, disappearing into the dim interior. Chief Adebayo moved slightly, positioning himself carefully, and watched through a damaged window pane from where he stood, gaining a limited view of the inside. Inside the meager space, Aisha seated the two girls on a worn mat spread on the bare floor. With gentle movements, she opened the polythene bags she had carried so carefully and produced the leftover food she had requested from the restaurant, a piece of chicken and a portion of jollof rice. It was a simple meal by Chief Adebayo standards, but in this setting, it appeared like a feast. She divided everything meticulously in half, placing the portions onto two small, perhaps plastic, plates. The girls, their eyes wide with eagerness and visible hunger, eagerly took their plates, immediately beginning to eat rapidly, their small mouths full, their eyes gleaming with simple pleasure and satisfaction as they devoured the food. But Aisha did not eat. She simply sat there on the bare floor beside them, watching her daughters consume the meal she had brought. She didn't pick up a plate for herself. She just watched them, a soft, loving smile on her face, her attention solely focused on their nourishment and happiness. Chief Adebayo blinked, his chest feeling incredibly heavy, a lump forming in his throat. He looked at the food on the girls' plates, then back at Aisha, sitting empty-handed. She had brought food, gone to great lengths to get it, but she herself was not eating any of it. He slowly shook his head in disbelief and dawning realization. Something within him began to profoundly shift, a deep sense of empathy and sorrow taking root. He turned away from the window for a moment, unable to watch, standing still in the darkness outside the dilapidated structure. Tears welled uncontrollably in his eyes, blurring his vision. He turned back towards the window, staring again at the scene inside the humble dwelling. He saw Aisha smiling at the girls as they ate, a picture of maternal devotion. She was still not consuming any food, deriving her satisfaction purely from seeing her children fed. Chief Adebayo held his chest, feeling a sharp, almost physical ache in his heart, a pain born of witnessing such selflessness and hidden suffering. He looked up at the night sky, the stars distant and indifferent, and whispered the painful truth he had just witnessed. She only took food for her children and ate nothing herself. He raised a trembling hand and wiped the tears from his eyes, the dampness on his skin a stark contrast to his usual composed exterior. His hands were trembling, a physical manifestation of the emotional turmoil he felt. The very woman he had perceived merely as an employee, a cleaner within his vast enterprise, was now the source of his profound sadness and deep respect. He looked at the dilapidated house again, its brokenness a mirror of the hardship he had just witnessed, then down at his own polished, expensive shoes, symbols of his disconnected world. He no longer felt wealthy or powerful in that moment. He simply felt sorrowful, humbled by the stark reality of her sacrifice. Slowly, Chief Adebayo walked back to his car, his footsteps heavy on the rough path. The street was quiet once more, the silence broken only by the chirping symphony of crickets in the surrounding bushes. He opened the car door and sat inside the luxurious interior. He did not start the engine immediately, just sat there in the quiet, lost in deep and turbulent thought. His eyes were still moist, the image of Aisha and her girls seared into his mind. He looked at his steering wheel, his hands still slightly trembling, and declared aloud, his voice resolute in the silence of the car, "I must take action. I cannot leave her in this state." After some time, perhaps processing the weight of his realization, he started the car. The powerful headlights illuminated the darkness, cutting through the gloom. He drove away slowly, casting one final, lingering glance at the dilapidated building reflected in his rearview mirror, the image of the loving mother and her hungry children etched into his memory. That night, he returned home to his own comfortable, perhaps opulent, residence, but he found no sleep. He tossed and turned in his large, soft bed, his mind incessantly filled with the image of Aisha, those two little girls eating ravenously, and that single, simple piece of chicken representing so much sacrifice. The following morning, as the sun gradually rose over Lagos, painting the sky with streaks of orange and pink. Aisha awoke early in the small, broken structure that was her home. She observed her two little girls still asleep on the mat on the floor, their breathing soft and rhythmic. She smiled, a gentle expression of pure love, and softly stroked their hair, a mother's tender touch. "Time to wake up, my angels," she said softly, her voice warm despite the cool morning air. The girls stirred, slowly opening their eyes, their faces still soft with sleep. "Mommy, are we attending school today?" one of them inquired, her voice sleepy but hopeful. "Yes, my dear," Aisha replied. "Let's get ready." Aisha helped them rise from the mat and carried a small pail outside to a designated spot. She poured water into a basin, perhaps cold from the night air, then assisted them in taking quick baths, one after the other, her movements efficient and caring. She dried them gently with a small, worn towel, rubbing their skin tenderly. From a small bundle, she produced their modest school uniforms, perhaps faded but clean, and helped them dress, carefully adjusting the fabric. Then she sat them down and combed their hair, patiently working through any tangles, neatly tying it into two small ponytails, a simple act of preparing them for the day. Following that, she opened the polythene bag from the previous evening, the one that had contained the precious leftovers. Only a small amount of rice remained, just enough to provide a meager breakfast for her daughters. She warmed the small portion of rice on a tiny gas cylinder stove, its flames small but functional, then placed it in two small plastic plates before them. "Here," she instructed gently, "eat this before we leave for school." The girls sat quietly on the floor, their legs crossed, and ate the rice, their focus entirely on the food. Aisha watched them, a familiar smile on her face, but her gaze seemed distant, perhaps already contemplating the long day ahead and the needs yet unmet. Once they finished eating the last grains of rice, she carefully packed their worn books into their small school bags, adding a small bottle of water for each of them. Then, together, they stepped outside as the sun grew brighter, casting longer shadows. They walked slowly, hand in hand, towards a small community school nearby, a building that, like their home, lacked grandeur. It lacked a proper gate, and its walls looked old and unpainted, but despite its humble appearance, the girls seemed happy and eager to be there. Aisha knelt down on the dusty ground and hugged them tightly, a gesture of farewell mixed with profound love and a mother's silent worries. "Be good, girls," she said, her voice filled with affection, kissing their foreheads once more. "I will be back soon to pick you up." The girls waved goodbye, their small figures running into the school grounds, joining other children. Aisha stood there for a moment, watching them go, a solitary figure, before turning and walking away, heading towards the main road. She needed to catch a bus and ensure she arrived at work punctually, ready for another long day of cleaning. At the restaurant, the bustling Sapphire Haven, Aisha changed quickly into her work attire, tied her apron securely, and joined the other cleaning staff, blending seamlessly into the routine. She swiftly began her tasks, sweeping the expansive floors with practiced movements. She mopped diligently beneath the chairs, cleaning every table surface until it gleamed under the restaurant's lights, her hands moving rapidly and efficiently. Despite the hidden hardships of her life, she performed her duties with dedication and skill. She did not appear outwardly weary or sad that morning. She moved with a quiet determination, even offering polite smiles to her colleagues when appropriate. Meanwhile, that same morning, Chief Adebayo sat quietly in the quiet luxury of his office. He was looking out the large window, his gaze directed towards the city, but he wasn't truly seeing the view. His thoughts were entirely preoccupied with the images from the previous night: Aisha, her two little girls, the dilapidated house, the single piece of chicken. He reached for his phone, a sleek device, and summoned the HR manager to his office, a decision firm in his mind. "Good morning, sir," the HR manager said respectfully upon entering. Chief Adebayo's voice was calm, as usual, but there was an underlying tone of resolution he rarely displayed. "We need to make some improvements," he stated, his gaze still fixed on the window. "Sir, the HR manager questioned, slightly puzzled by the abrupt statement. Our employees, Chief Adebayo clarified, turning his head slightly to look at the manager, his expression serious. Some of them are genuinely struggling, living under difficult circumstances. A silence filled the office, the weight of his words unexpected. Then he added, his voice firm and clear, increase their salaries across the board, starting this month. And more importantly, implement a system to ensure that no one working here ever goes home hungry. Make sure there are nutritious leftovers distributed regularly to all staff who need them. Yes, sir, the HR manager replied promptly, understanding the chief's directive and the implicit urgency. Chief Adebayo leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes for a brief moment as the HR manager departed, already formulating plans. Aisha's face came to mind again, her sitting on the bare floor, smiling at her children while they ate the meager meal. He opened his eyes and whispered softly to himself, the painful truth reiterated. She didn't even eat. Days turned into weeks, and life at the Sapphire Haven continued its rhythm, but subtle changes were in motion. Aisha, unaware of the events of that previous night or the chief's subsequent actions, consistently arrived at work early, maintaining her rigorous routine. She meticulously cleaned the floors until they shone, and wiped every table surface as if she were preparing it for a royal guest, her dedication unwavering. She was never late, she never showed a frown, and she never, ever requested anything more than the available leftover food. Each evening as the restaurant prepared to close, the aroma of cooked meals still lingering in the air, she would quietly approach the back door of the kitchen area, knock gently, and inquire of the kitchen staff, her voice polite and soft. Excuse me, is there any leftover food available today? Sometimes there was only a small portion of rice, perhaps just enough for her daughters for one meal. But she never complained or showed disappointment. With a small smile and a sincere expression of gratitude, she would accept whatever was offered, carefully pack it into her polythene bag, and leave, embarking on her journey home. Chief Adebayo continued to observe her from a distance, not yet speaking to her directly, simply watching her consistent dedication and listening to her quiet, humble requests. Each day, as he witnessed her unwavering routine and quiet dignity, his heart grew heavier with empathy, and each night, the image of her sacrifice haunted him, prompting the question, how many others are living similarly, carrying such burdens in silence? Aisha was in the midst of her morning duties, meticulously cleaning tables and rearranging chairs, when the head cook, a woman she interacted with daily, approached her. Aisha, the cook said, her tone neutral, the chief wants to see you in his office. Aisha looked up swiftly, the unexpected summons causing her heart to start racing with apprehension. Chief Adebayo rarely interacted directly with the cleaning staff. Such matters were handled by supervisors. Did I do something wrong? She asked in a soft, worried voice, her mind immediately jumping to fearful possibilities. The cook shook her head, her expression unreadable. I don't know, Aisha. He just said he wants to see you. Just go up and see him. Aisha dried her hands nervously on her apron, her mind buzzing with uncertainty, and walked slowly towards the chief's office, her apprehension increasing with every step. She reached the door, took a deep breath to steady herself, and knocked gently. Come in, Chief Adebayo's voice responded from inside. Aisha opened the door slowly and entered the spacious, quiet office, her movements hesitant, appearing visibly nervous. Good morning, sir, she said quietly, her gaze directed downwards. Please sit down, Aisha. Chief Adebayo invited, his voice kind and gentle, lacking any hint of sternness or accusation. She sat down slowly on the edge of the plush chair offered to her, her body rigid with uncertainty, unsure of what was happening or what to expect. For a moment, there was silence in the room, the only sound the soft hum of the air conditioning. Then Chief Adebayo spoke, his voice still gentle, but his words were direct and unexpected. Aisha, he began, his gaze steady. I followed you one night. Aisha's eyes widened instantly in utter confusion and shock. Her head snapped up, meeting his gaze, her eyes searching his face for an explanation. You followed me, sir? she asked, her voice barely a whisper, tinged with disbelief and fear. Yes, Chief Adebayo confirmed, his tone calm and reassuring, not accusatory. That night you asked for the leftover food.
I saw where you reside.
I saw your two little girls. Aisha's face crumpled, her initial confusion giving way to shame and vulnerability. She lowered her gaze to the floor once more, her hands beginning to tremble uncontrollably in her lap. Tears welled up rapidly, and she quickly raised a hand to wipe her face, trying to conceal her emotion. I didn't intend any wrongdoing, sir, she said in a low, choked voice, the words heavy with desperation. I was simply trying to nourish my children. I didn't want to steal. Chief Adebayo shook his head slowly, his expression one of profound understanding and empathy. You did nothing wrong, Aisha, he stated, looking directly into her tear-filled eyes, wanting her to understand this truth. You are a commendable mother. You are resilient. You work incredibly hard, and you do it with dignity. Aisha was unable to speak, overwhelmed by his words and the unexpected kindness. She lowered her head again, now weeping softly, the dam of her suppressed emotions breaking. Then, Chief Adebayo said, his voice filled with genuine warmth and sincerity, I wish to extend my assistance to you and your children. Aisha looked up again, her eyes wide, brimming with tears and a dawning sense of hope she hadn't dared to feel. The following day, Chief Adebayo called Aisha into his office again. She walked in slowly, her heart still a mixture of trepidation and fragile hope, still uncertain of what to anticipate fully. She had wept much after their conversation the day before, the weight of her secret lifted, replaced by an overwhelming sense of vulnerability and the chief's promise of help. Aisha, Chief Adebayo began, a warm, genuine smile on his face this time. I have wonderful news for you. He extended a document towards her across the polished desk. Aisha took it with trembling hands and examined it closely, her eyes scanning the words. It was an official document indicating a promotion, outlining a new role, personal assistant to the CEO, Chief Adebayo himself. She looked up at him, bewildered, the paper shaking in her hands. You are now my personal assistant, Chief Adebayo announced, his voice kind and clear. You will receive a much better salary from now on, one that reflects your hard work and your dedication. Aisha covered her mouth with her hands, a gasp escaping her lips, tears immediately filling her eyes once more. But these were tears of shock and immense gratitude. That's not all. Chief Adebayo continued, rising from his chair with purpose and picking up a substantial brown envelope from the corner of his desk. He walked around the desk and approached her gently. I have acquired a small apartment for you and your children, he said softly, extending the envelope containing the keys and documents towards her. It's not grand, perhaps not as luxurious as some places, but it is respectable, clean, and secure. It is a proper home. Aisha's hands began to tremble violently. She could scarcely believe what she was hearing, the words washing over her like a miracle. You and your girls will no longer have to sleep on the floor, Chief Adebayo added, his voice empathetic. There is running water, electricity, and adequate space for them to study and sleep comfortably, for you all to live with dignity. Aisha placed both hands on her chest, clutching the document and the envelope as if they were the most precious things in the world. Sir, she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. Is this truly for me? For my children? Chief Adebayo nodded slowly, his expression one of deep satisfaction at being able to help. Yes, Aisha. It is for you. You are deserving of more. You are a devoted mother who puts her children first. You are diligent in your work. You do not complain despite your burdens. He then continued, outlining the extent of his support. I will also arrange for them to attend a better school, one that can provide them with a strong education and opportunities. And from this day forward, you will never, ever have to ask for leftover food again. Aisha sank to her knees beside the chair, unable to stand any longer under the weight of the overwhelming good news. Tears streamed down her face like a river, soaking her apron.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so profoundly, she sobbed, her voice trembling with gratitude. I am at a loss for words to express how grateful I am. Chief Adebayo smiled kindly, walked back to his desk, opened a drawer, and produced a small white envelope. Take this, he said, handing it to her as she knelt. Use it to purchase something enjoyable for dinner tonight. Something special for your first meal in your new home. Aisha accepted the envelope with both hands, holding it close to her chest along with the others. May God bless you, sir, she said through her tears, her eyes fixed on him with profound sincerity. Chief Adebayo nodded, a sense of peace settling over him. You have earned it, Aisha. Every bit of it. That night, the small, humble room that had been Aisha's dwelling held a different aroma. It smelled sweet, like hope and joy mingled with the scent of cooking spices. Aisha stood before the small gas stove, gently stirring the pot. It was jollof rice and chicken, real chicken, a generous portion, not just a leftover scrap. The two girls sat eagerly on the mat on the floor, their eyes wide with anticipation, watching the food cook, their faces alight with excitement. Mommy, you bought so much chicken, the younger one exclaimed, her voice full of wonder. Aisha turned from the stove, a radiant smile on her face, one that reached her eyes this time, free from underlying weariness. Yes, my love, she said. Tonight we feast. We celebrate. When the meal was ready, fragrant and steaming, she served it onto 3 plates, not 2, ensuring there was enough for herself as well. The girls eagerly took their plates, seating themselves quickly back on the mat and immediately beginning to eat with happy, busy hands, their earlier hunger now met with delicious abundance. The older girl hummed, chewing rapidly, savoring the taste. Mommy, this is the most delicious food ever. It's better than anything. I adore it, the younger one added, her mouth full, her eyes sparkling. It tastes like heaven. Aisha sat beside them, holding her own plate, but for a while, she simply watched them eat, her heart full. She spoke little, simply smiling, absorbing the moment. Tears lingered in her eyes, glistening in the dim light, but they did not fall. They were tears of overwhelming relief and quiet joy. For the first time in a long, long while, she watched her children eat and laugh without the gnawing worry about where the next meal would come from, and that was enough nourishment for her soul. The next morning, something else extraordinary occurred. A gleaming dark vehicle, the kind Chief Adebayo himself drove, stopped silently in front of their small, dilapidated dwelling. Aisha stepped outside, carrying the girls' few school bags, looking at the car parked on the rough path in confusion, wondering why such a vehicle would be here. Then, a smartly dressed driver emerged from the car and smiled kindly. Good morning, madam, he said respectfully. Chief Adebayo has sent me. I am here to escort you to your new residence. Aisha stood motionless for a moment, the words taking a second to register, her mind processing the reality of the promise. Then, a wave of emotion washed over her. She turned to her girls, who had followed her outside, their faces curious. Gather your belongings, my darlings, she instructed, her voice trembling slightly with emotion, tears welling up again. We are relocating. We're going to our new home. They all entered the car together, the girls wide-eyed with excitement and a touch of bewilderment. The ride was quiet, the plush interior a stark contrast to their old surroundings, but their hearts resonated loudly with a shared, overflowing happiness and anticipation. Upon arriving at the new house, a modest but clean and well-maintained apartment, the girls sprang out of the car, unable to contain their excitement, running towards the front door. The house was clean, freshly painted, with functional windows that let in the light. Inside, there were comfortable chairs and a small living area, a tidy, functional kitchen with a small refrigerator and stove, and, perhaps most wonderfully, soft beds in the bedroom. The girls ran from room to room, their voices ringing with pure, unadulterated joy. Mommy, we have our own beds, one exclaimed, bouncing slightly on a mattress. Look, a real kitchen. We don't have to sleep on the mat anymore. Aisha stood in the center of the living area, slowly turning, taking it all in, the reality of the transformation settling over her. Then, Her legs feeling weak with emotion, she sank onto one of the new chairs. She looked up at the clean ceiling, a roof that didn't leak or threaten to collapse, and whispered, "Thank you, God. Thank you." Her struggle was not entirely over. Life would still present challenges, but a new chapter had commenced, a chapter filled with hope, security, and dignity, and this time, it began not with asking for scraps, but with receiving a blessing. Aisha sat quietly on the soft chair in the new living area, the silence of the comfortable space a soothing balm after years of hardship. The house was peaceful, filled only with the sounds of her daughters playing happily with pillows on the floor, their laughter echoing freely within the clean walls. Aisha looked around the room, taking in the simple comforts, and smiled, still processing the almost unbelievable reality of her new home. She looked up at the ceiling again, her heart overflowing with gratitude, and whispered, "God, I thank you. I truly thank you for this blessing." Just then, her phone rang, a small, unexpected sound in the quiet. She looked at the screen. It was Chief Adebayo calling. Her heart quickened for a moment, a lingering sense of deference mixed with gratitude, but she swiftly answered the call, her voice calm and respectful. "Good morning, sir," she said gently. Chief Adebayo's voice came through the phone, clear and warm. "Aisha," he said, "I just wanted to check on you and your girls. Are you settling in?" "We are well, sir," Aisha replied, tears of gratitude returning to her eyes. "Thank you again for everything you have done for us. We're so happy." There was a brief pause on the line, a moment of silent understanding. Then Chief Adebayo said, his voice kind and thoughtful, "Aisha, do not come to work today." Aisha's eyes widened in surprise. "Sir?" she asked, momentarily confused. "Take the day off," he repeated gently. "Relish your new home. Go out, buy groceries, prepare a pleasant meal in your new kitchen. Spend time with your daughters, explore your new neighborhood if you wish. Today is dedicated to you and your family." Aisha placed her hand on her chest, overwhelmed by his continued kindness and consideration. "Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. You are truly a blessing." "You have earned it, Aisha," he said again, reaffirming her worthiness. "Enjoy your day. Let this be a fresh start." The call concluded. Aisha held the phone close to her heart, a symbol of the connection to the man who had changed their lives. She stood up from the chair, her steps lighter, and walked to the kitchen. It was spotless and gleaming, ready for use. She opened a small cabinet, her cabinet now, and retrieved rice and fresh vegetables, ingredients she could now afford to buy. As she began to cook, the familiar aroma of jollof rice filling the air, the girls entered the kitchen, still smiling from their exploration of the new house. "Mommy, what are you preparing?" one inquired, peering into the pot. Aisha turned, looking at them with profound love and satisfaction. "Our inaugural meal in this house," she said softly, reaching out and taking their small hands in hers. "Before we eat," Aisha said, her voice gentle but firm, wanting to instill a sense of gratitude in her children, "let us offer thanks to God once more for this blessing." The girls nodded obediently, closing their eyes, and together, with simple words and grateful hearts, they prayed, acknowledging the source of their unexpected fortune. Their journey had been challenging, marked by hardship and quiet suffering, but now a new life had begun, founded not on luck, but on faith, perseverance, compassion, and love. Esteemed viewer, this narrative serves as a poignant and powerful reminder that simple kindness, when extended sincerely, possesses the extraordinary power to transform lives in ways we might not fully grasp. At times, the person working quietly beside you, the one whose story remains untold, may be contending with a significant struggle unseen and unknown by others. Aisha did not resort to begging or theft despite her desperate circumstances. She worked diligently, she prayed for strength, and she persevered with unwavering determination, even amidst immense hardship and sacrifice. And Chief Adebayo, he chose to truly see her, to look beyond her job title and her humble request, to follow and witness her reality, and to offer assistance not out of obligation, but out of genuine empathy. And that single decision, born of compassion, altered everything for Aisha and her children. The message is straightforward, clear, and timeless. If you are in a position to help someone, please do not hesitate. A singular act of kindness, whether large or small, possesses the potential to illuminate the lives of an entire family, lifting them from darkness into hope. What insights did you gain from this deeply moving story? Please share your reflections and thoughts in the comments section below. I am genuinely eager to read them and learn from your perspectives. And would you believe it? Another captivating and inspiring story is scheduled to arrive in the coming days, ready to touch your heart and perhaps offer another valuable lesson. Therefore, I strongly encourage you to subscribe to this channel and ensure you enable the notification bell, perhaps selecting all notifications, so you'll be among the very first to view it the moment I upload the next story. If you found this particular story enjoyable, touching, or thought-provoking, kindly remember to press the like button to show your appreciation, and please consider sharing it with your friends and loved ones who might also benefit from its powerful message of hope and compassion. Your viewership and engagement are deeply appreciated, and I thank you for taking the time to read and reflect on Aisha's journey.